lost my balance and fell over completely backwards, sliding head first on my back across this rock face, thinking, you're dead, this is it.
Trapped at the bottom of steep cliffs, David can see no option but to try to scale the sheer rock wall to safety. It's painfully slow progress. After an hour, he's still only 30 feet above the river.
I'm traversing these rock faces using my toes on little cracks in the rock and using as much caution as I possibly could conceive of, due to the fact that I was alone and, any falls would be catastrophic.
But the higher he climbs, the more unstable the rock face becomes.
This dislodged rock decided to roll down onto my foot. It resulted in breaking a couple of toes as this rock landed on my foot. There wasn't anything I could do about it at the time.
Climbing upwards is agony, but the cliff face is too steep to descend. So he has no option but to keep going.
I grab onto a rock. I'm using it as a handhold to work my way around sort of an outcropping, and the rock comes off in my hand. And then I sort of teetered there for a few seconds, minutes, hours, days, lifetimes, who knows. I lost my balance and fell over completely backwards, sliding head first on my back across this rock face, thinking, you're dead, this is it. My life jacket caught on something. It flipped me completely over in a backward somersault. I hit my chin on something hard enough to break 4 teeth, knocked myself entirely unconscious. I found myself in the Colorado River coming up out of the water, spitting teeth out of my mouth. I could see another sandy spot further downstream from me. I'd say a half a mile down from where I was. I knew that just getting myself into this alcove that I could see was going to be a challenge. And I'm probably a good 30 feet above the river, and lo and behold, right in front of my face is a can of beer.
The beer can is the first sign of life he's seen in over 20 days. But he quickly realizes it must have been washed up in floods years earlier.
This beer has been there long enough that the label is just about entirely faded off of it.
Having lost all of his supplies, David knows it could provide a valuable source of energy. David slowly picks his way across the rocks, and 2 hours later, finally reaches the small isolated cove.
By the time I had actually gotten down to the sandy alcove, I'd pretty much dried out and warmed up just from exertion.
Only now does David realize the enormity of his situation. His quest for solitude brought him to the heart of the Grand Canyon. But it's now left him utterly alone, in winter, when he's unlikely to see anyone for months. Surrounded by mountains at the edge of the river, he's completely stranded. He's lost everything. He has no food, shelter, or warm clothing. And David knows he now faces a freezing night ahead.
I was getting down into the 40s at night. I was aware that the most immediate threat to my health and sanity was going to be hypothermia.
With no way to call for help, and all his tools and equipment lost, David knows he must rely on himself and his ingenuity if he's to stay alive.
I seriously got into survival mode. I'm trying to figure out ways to keep myself warm and protected from the elements. I managed to dig a body-sized pit in the sand, and I found a fairly good-sized log that I could put on the upwind side of my little pit to block the wind out. I spent the rest of the afternoon gathering up a gigantic mound of dried grasses. And I lined my little pit in that and built myself a nest, not unlike a bird's nest, basically. I did happen to have a propane lighter in my pocket, and I did manage to get, a fire going as the sun went down.
But with temperatures now dropping to well below freezing, the fire is his only way to stave off hypothermia. If he falls asleep and it goes out, he'll die. And David's trip isn't due to end for another few days, the earliest that anyone will even know he's missing.
I've got, 2.5, maybe 3 days, as long as I can keep myself from becoming so hypothermic that my body shuts down. I might drift off into a semi-conscious state, but I was definitely never into a full, relaxed sleep.